All right, so you guys send in a ton of stuff about slow burn relationships, and
Yeah.
wow, did we get a lot of articles and Reddit threads, even a few mentions in romance novels?
Yeah, definitely seems to be a hot topic these days.
Yeah, it is. It's a term I've heard, but never really thought about, like, what
Yeah.
does it actually mean,
Yeah.
in a relationship? What does it look like?
It's funny because I think it kind of pushes back against how we think love is supposed to be,
Yeah.
you know?
Right. Yeah. Okay. So first off, how would you even define a slow burn relationship? It's more than just taking it slow, right?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
It's more about being intentional,
Mm.
like really building a strong friendship first
Okay.
before you even think about getting serious or committed, which actually there's this research called the mere exposure effect.
Ooh, I think I've heard of that.
Yeah.
Remind me what it is.
Basically, it says that the more we see something or someone, the more we end up liking it.
Okay.
Familiarity, even if we don't realize it, can actually make us more attracted to someone over time.
So you're saying looks and that initial spark aren't the whole story.
Yeah, exactly. It's more about that feeling of comfort and connection that grows over time.
Okay, so think about it this way. Are we maybe overlooking some really great connections because we're so hung up on that first spark?
Possibly. I mean, think of those couples who started as friends first. Maybe they worked together.
Right.
There might not have been any fireworks at the beginning, but they got to know each other and the attraction grew naturally.
Yeah, that makes sense. So it's like in a world where everything is instant, right? Like dating apps, you just swipe left or right.
Exactly.
This idea of slow burn is almost like a rebellion against that. It's about really getting to know someone deeply.
I think you're right, and for a lot of people, that's the appeal of slow burn.
Mm-hmm.
It's about being genuine. You see the real person, not just the image they project.
That's gonna save you some heartache down the line.
Oh, absolutely. But it takes guts, right?
Yeah,
To be vulnerable like that and let someone in slowly.
definitely. But if you do the research shows that those relationships tend to be stronger in the long run
Way more resilient. Yeah.
because you built that solid foundation from the start.
Yeah.
All right, so we've defined slow burn, but how does it compare to other relationship dynamics we see? Like, what about the whole friends to lovers trope? Isn't there some overlap there?
Oh, totally. Friends to lovers already have that trust going for them, right?
Right.
But shifting from friends to something more, that can be a tough
Yeah,
transition.
you're messing with a whole different set of feelings and expectations.
Exactly. And if you're not both on the same page, whoa, things can get messy.
For sure. And then there's that classic enemies to lovers thing. That's basically slow burn built in, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's a classic for a reason. The tension just keeps building until bam.
Totally. So let's talk about why slow burn might be a good thing. Our sources mentioned a bunch of benefits, but what really stands out to you?
I'd say the biggest one is resilience. Like research shows, slow burn couples are better at handling tough times. When you've taken the time to build that base of shared values and respect and really understanding each other, you're less likely to fall apart when things get rough.
It's like building a house on solid ground, not on sand.
Haha, exactly. What else? Oh,
Yeah.
less pressure.
Okay. Yeah, explain that.
When you're not rushing, you can be yourself right from the start. No pretending.
Oh, man. That's a relief, especially if you've ever felt like you had to be someone you're not in a past relationship.
Right. And this ties into another benefit, healthy emotional dependence.
Now, wait, dependence in a relationship, that sounds kind of scary.
Yeah, I get that. It's not about being clingy, though. It's about needing each other in a healthy way.
Okay.
Like, you can rely on each other, but you still have your own identity.
So it's about two whole people choosing to be together and supporting each other.
Exactly. And slow burn can really help that blossom.
All right, so it can't all be good, though. What are some downsides to slow burn? What should people watch out for?
Well, impatience can be a big one, especially if one person is ready to commit and the other's not.
Yeah, that could be frustrating.
Definitely. If it's not handled well, you end up with unmet expectations and tension.
It's like one person's hitting the gas and the other one's still adjusting their seat.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's fear of rejection, which I think is even stronger with slow burn.
Which you're putting yourself out there slowly, but for a longer period of time.
Exactly. It's like this extended period of vulnerability.
Yeah, and if you've been hurt before, that can be really tough.
Definitely. And, even with good intentions and communication, there's always that risk of missing an opportunity.
What do you mean?
Like, what if you wait too long and the other person moves on?
Ooh, that's a tough one. So even with all the good stuff, slow burn doesn't guarantee a happy ending, huh?
It doesn't. It's a different approach, and it needs patience, vulnerability, and a lot of open communication.
Yeah, for sure.
Research suggests it can lead to stronger, more fulfilling relationships.
Yeah.
But it's not a magic formula. It really depends on the people involved.
So there's no one right way to do relationships.
Nope.
Okay, so let's say someone is listening to this and thinking, slow burn sounds kind of interesting. Maybe I should try it. What advice would you give them? Like, what are the key things to remember?
Well, first things first, you got to talk to each other.
Oh, yeah, that's important in any relationship.
Seriously, no mind reading allowed.
Yeah.
You got to be upfront about how you feel, what you need, and what you expect from this.
Yeah, no passive-aggressive hints or hoping they just get it.
Exactly. And patience. This isn't a race to the finish line.
Okay.
Enjoy getting to know each other. Let it happen naturally.
Which is easier said than done, right? Our world is so fast-paced.
Yeah, it is. What else? Oh, don't forget about yourself.
What do you mean?
It's easy to lose yourself in a relationship, especially when you're taking things slow,
Oh, I see.
but you got to keep doing the things you love.
Right, like your hobbies and your own interests.
Exactly. Keep growing as a person.
So don't just become half of a couple. Be your own whole self.
Yes. And when both people do that, the relationship is actually stronger for it. You bring new things to the table. Keep it interesting.
I like that. Okay, so we've got communication, patience, and individual growth. Anything else someone trying slow burn should keep in mind?
You know what? Don't forget to have fun. Just because you're taking it slow doesn't mean it has to be serious all the time.
Right. Keep that spark alive.
Exactly. Find ways to be playful. Try new things together.
So it's like finding that balance between being intentional but also spontaneous.
Exactly. Now I'm curious, what does the research actually say about slow burn and long-term happiness? Are people actually happier down the line?
That's a good question.
Well, studies show that slow burn couples tend to be more satisfied and they're less likely to break up.
That's really promising. But it's not a guarantee for everyone.
Right. If you look at online discussions and stuff, it's clear people have strong opinions about slow burn. Some love it, others find it frustrating and unrealistic.
So it really depends on the person.
It does. What works for one couple might not work for another.
At the end of the day, it's about what feels right for you and what you want in a relationship.
Exactly. Whether it's slow burn or something else, be true to yourself.
Well, this has been super interesting. I'm starting to get why slow burn is such a big deal.
Yeah?
But we've only scratched the surface, haven't we?
We have.
Yeah.
There's so much more to talk about, especially when it comes to actually making slow burn work in real life.
All right, well, don't go anywhere because in part 2, we're diving even deeper. We'll talk about those details and give some practical advice for anyone who's intrigued by this whole slow burn thing.
You know, it's interesting. As we dig deeper into this whole slow burn thing, I'm realizing it's not just about romantic relationships, you know?
Oh, that's a good point. I hadn't thought of it like that. You're saying the idea of slow burn could apply to, like, friendships or even family.
Totally. Think about it. Strong friendships usually take time, right?
Yeah.
So you share experiences, build trust, understand each other. It's not that different from what we're seeing with slow burn romance.
So it's about realizing that taking that slow, intentional approach can be good for a and Y relationship.
Exactly. And speaking of intentionality, slow burn kind of challenges what society expects about dating.
Right. It's like we're told love is supposed to be this instant thing, like love at first sight.
Exactly. And that can be a good thing, and a challenging thing.
Okay, how so?
Well, it's good because you get to decide your own pace and build a relationship that fits your values. But it's also challenging because sometimes you get pressure from others.
Oh, yeah, like friends and family, maybe, even from stuff you see on TV and online.
Exactly. They might not get why you're taking it slow.
It's like you're doing your own thing, which is cool, but it can feel lonely if the people around you aren't on board.
Yeah, so it's really important to know yourself and surround yourself with people who support you, even if they don't do things the same way.
That's a good reminder for any relationship, really, no matter how fast or slow it moves.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about communication. It seems like that would be even more important in a slow burn relationship.
Oh, absolutely. Communication is key in any relationship, but especially when you're taking things slow.
Why is that?
Well, there's more room for misunderstandings.
Right.
Doubts can creep in if you're not talking openly and honestly.
Yeah, because you're not having those what are we conversations right away.
Right. It's more organic, so you have to be really careful about checking in with each other, making sure you're on the same page.
And it's not just about saying what you want, right?
No, it's also about being able to talk about your fears,
Yeah,
those things you're insecure about.
especially in the beginning when you're both still figuring each other out.
Exactly. Slow burn needs emotional courage. You have
Yeah.
to be willing to be open, even when it's scary.
Yeah, you're building trust one conversation at a time.
And that can be a beautiful thing because it creates space for real intimacy.
It's like creating a safe space where you can be honest about your anxieties past, Hurts all those things that might be holding you back. Okay, so besides communication, what else is important for a slow burn relationship to work?
You know, one thing that comes up a lot is keeping things exciting.
That makes sense. You don't want things to get boring just because you're taking it slow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You got to find ways to keep the spark alive.
Like what?
It doesn't have to be anything crazy. Try new things together, have deep conversations, just make time for each other.
So it's about finding that balance between taking it slow, but also keeping the relationship moving forward.
Exactly. And every couple's going to find their own balance. There's no right or wrong way to do it as long as both people feel good about it.
That makes sense. And that brings us back to communication, right? Checking in with each other and making sure you're both still feeling good about the pace. Speaking of pace, I'm curious about individual growth in slow burn relationships. How does that play into it?
That's a great question. And it's something people often forget about. When you're in a relationship, especially one that's moving slowly, it's easy to lose yourself.
Right. You can get so focused on building the relationship that you forget about your own growth.
Exactly. But the truth is, a healthy relationship needs both people to be growing as individuals.
Because if you're not growing on your own, you can't bring your best self to the relationship, right?
Exactly. So keep doing the things you love, keep learning, keep growing as a person.
So it's not about merging into one person. It's about two individuals who are growing together, but also side by side.
Beautifully said. And when both people are committed to growing, the relationship can grow too. It can evolve in ways it couldn't if you were both stagnant.
It's like you're always bringing something new to the relationship, keeping things fresh.
Exactly. And that's one of the most beautiful things about slow burn.
Yeah.
It has the potential to transform not just the people, but the relationship itself. Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about something that can be tricky in slow burn relationships: physical intimacy.
Yeah, that seems like it could be tough to navigate when you're intentionally taking things slow.
You're right. And there's no right or wrong answer here. It really depends on the people, their comfort levels, their values, and how they define the relationship.
Right. Some people might choose to wait until they're more committed, while others might find that exploring physical intimacy gradually actually helps their emotional bond.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The important thing is to talk about it. Be open and honest about your boundaries, what you want and what you expect. Make sure anything physical is always a mutual choice, never rushed or pressured.
And respect each other's timelines, even if they're different.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about finding that balance between what you need and what your partner needs. And remember, those needs can change as the relationship grows.
Yeah, that makes sense. So it's all about communication and respect.
Exactly. And when you have that physical intimacy can become a really natural and joyful part of the relationship.
Yeah.
Instead of being the foundation, it becomes a way to express the love and trust you've already built.
This has been such a great conversation. We've talked about how slow burn can apply to all kinds of relationships, how important communication is, that balance between taking it slow and keeping things exciting, and the role of individual growth.
And we even touched on the complexities of physical intimacy in a slow burn relationship.
We did. But there's still more to explore, right? Like what's causing this whole slow burn trend? And what does it say about how love and relationships are changing?
Right. We're going to dive into all of that in the last part of our deep dive into slow burn relationships.
So make sure you join us for part 3, where we wrap up this whole fascinating discussion. Okay, so welcome back to the final part of our deep dive on slow burn relationships. You know, as we've been talking about this, I keep thinking slow burn isn't just a dating trend, it's bigger than that.
I agree. It's more like a whole different way of thinking about relationships, right? Like choosing to be intentional and go deep.
Yeah, it's about wanting something that lasts instead of just chasing those quick thrills.
Exactly. And in a world that's all about speed and instant gratification, choosing to slow down is kind of a big deal.
Yeah, it feels almost rebellious, like pushing back against that whole swipe left culture.
It is. And I think it shows that people are craving something more meaningful.
Yeah, they're tired of surface level connections. They want something real, something with substance.
For sure. And slow burn gives you the space to build that. When you take away the pressure to rush into things, the relationship can unfold naturally and you can see what it's truly capable of.
Yeah, it's like you're peeling back the layers, slowly revealing your true selves, and letting the connection grow in a way that feels real and lasting.
That gradual unfolding can be so powerful.
Yeah.
You're learning and growing together, discovering new things about each other. It's like you're building this rich history together instead of just rushing to the end.
One of the things that really stands out to me about slow burn is the potential for deeper intimacy.
Yeah, I agree.
When you have that foundation of friendship and trust, it creates a safe space to be vulnerable, and that's where true connection happens.
Absolutely. Slow burn is all about creating a space where you can be yourself completely without worrying about being judged. And that acceptance is at the heart of real intimacy.
It's like this safe haven where you can let your guard down, show your true colors. And that
Oh,
takes courage, but the rewards are so worth it. You're not just accepting each other's flaws, you're embracing them as part of what makes you special.
so well said.
Yeah.
And that intimacy isn't just emotional. It can make the physical connection even stronger, too.
Right, because when you have that strong emotional bond, physical intimacy becomes a way to express it. It's not the basis of the relationship, it's an extension of it.
Exactly. It becomes this beautiful celebration of the love and trust you've already built.
Now, we've talked about all the good things about slow burn, but it's important to be real. It's not always easy, right?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
It takes patience, self-awareness, and a lot of trust to make slow burn work.
Yeah. One of the hardest parts, I think, is dealing with all the uncertainty.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
In a world that's always telling us to move faster, it can be tough to trust that things are unfolding at the right pace.
It can. And there's so many questions that come up, like, are we moving too slowly? Are we on the same page? Is this even going anywhere? It takes a lot of trust to navigate that without freaking out.
And that's where communication is so important.
Absolutely.
Being able to talk about your feelings, your needs, your hopes, and your fears can make a huge difference. It's about checking in with each other, being vulnerable, and making sure you both feel good about how the relationship is moving. And it's also about trusting your gut,
Yes.
like paying attention to your intuition and figuring out if this feels right for you, regardless of what anyone else says.
So important. At the end of the day, you have to be true to yourself and what you want. And if slow burn feels right for you, then go for it. Embrace it with all the challenges and all the amazing possibilities.
This whole deep dive has been so eye-opening. I'm really starting to understand the power of slow burn.
Me too. It's been great.
You know, we've talked about the psychology behind it, the practical tips, and how this whole trend reflects a shift towards a slower, more intentional way of life.
And how it applies to more than just romantic relationships.
Exactly. So as we wrap things up, I want to leave everyone with this thought. In a world that's always pushing us to rush, slow burn is like this act of rebellion. It's a reminder to slow down, to enjoy the process, to appreciate the beauty of things unfolding naturally, and to cultivate a love that's real and lasting.
I love that. And who knows, maybe this has given you a new perspective on love. Maybe it's inspired you to be more patient, more present, more intentional in your own relationships.
And if it has, then we've done our job. As always, the real deep dive happens within each of you. So take what resonates, leave what doesn't, and keep exploring the amazing world of human connection.
And whether you're into slow burn or something else, always remember to be true to yourself and create relationships that feel good and fulfilling.
That's great advice. All right, everyone, until next time, happy deep diving.